construction professionals who have logged in. So we have Mr. L.S. Kannan, who is heading the concrete management division of buildings and factories of Larsen & Toubro, and he is popularly known as LSK in the industry circles. And basically, if you talk about concrete, I think without mentioning his name in L&T, we cannot go for concrete, because that is the kind of expertise that he has got, the experience. He has almost got 35 years in concrete technology itself, and in all types of concrete. And his specialization is in high strength concrete, M60 and above, and anything that is to do with pumping to greater heights, pumping to greater distances. Mr. L.S. Kannan has gained a lot of expertise by virtue of his experience in Larsen & Toubro, and by the very nature of works the company has undertaken across the globe. And he, in fact, coordinates with all the construction sites within Larsen & Toubro for quality of concrete. So I am sure that his lecture would be concentrating more on practical aspects. So we had heard earlier, we had heard about the academic side of it, a lot of academic as well as practical issues also we have heard from various speakers. But today you will find how concrete is being, different types of concrete, different types of structure, various ways of doing it from Mr. Kannan. And his areas of interest is high performance concrete with alternate materials, durability of concrete structures, lightweight concrete, and 3D printing. And he has delivered lectures across many engineering colleges and many conferences as well. And he has won awards, first prize in concrete cube strength competition, which was organized by ACC Madurai, Rio Dynamic Concrete Award, BIL Roof Element, SCC, IC, and BASF Award on innovative use of self-compacting concrete. So you take the name of self-compacting concrete to be pumped, high-strength concrete. I think today's session would be an eye-opener for all of us. And we are sure that we will get a lot of ideas. And many of the ideas that we would be hearing from him, I'm sure that it is implementable. The kind of passion that he has got for concrete technology, you can see while he speaks in today's session itself. I am sure that he has got a big challenge at his hand, because concrete technology being such a vast subject is being confined to an hour session. So the kind of challenge that he would be having to look at the concrete practices within a short span of time would be very interesting. So over to you, Kannan sir. Thanks for accepting our invitation from Ramco Cements. We at Ramco Cements are indeed pleased to have you, because L&T and Ramco Cements is having a long-standing collaboration with each other. We have had a lot of interactions with each other. So with those few words, I hand it over to you for speaking about concrete practices. Over to you, Mr. L.S. Kannan.
Thank you, Mr. Anil, for a brief introduction. Good evening to all participants. As Mr. Anil pointed out, it's very difficult to talk about even concrete practices within 1 hour. Okay. I will do is I'll try to do justice, whatever the best thing that I can give to all of you. We'll see, depending on the time, because what are all the practical aspects, because it is not only site concrete, even I'm talking about the smaller concrete, where small contractors, if you're doing a concrete also, nominal mixes and all also, I want to throw some highlight on how to improve the quality of concrete, right? So let me start the presentation. At the end, you can throw the questions and all through the chat, so that we can reply at the end.
Perfect.
So this is what is the flow I want to take it. Something, anyhow, I'm not going to talk about materials here. Handling of materials I'll be talking. It's not that material properties I'm going to talk here. Batching, mixing, transportation, placing, leveling, compaction, finishing, protection and curing. Then we'll go for a discussion. Even something about crack also I'll talk when we are talking about production and curing. First of all, let me start this slide. So there is no meaning for this word without you and I. Why we need you and I to fulfill the word quality? Quality is nothing but a teamwork. Without team, quality cannot be achieved. Okay. That means, see, the team means the owner, the specifiers, that is consultants, the contractors, contracted engineers, supervisors, the ultimate workman. Everyone should know what they are supposed to deliver. according to the project need. Okay. See, the owner has to specify what exactly he want, which will be converted by the specifier consultants. The contractor has to adhere to the specification norms, what is given as per the contract. He has to fulfill the product requirement. Then only the required quality can be achieved. Because when we talk about concrete, without quality, we cannot produce good quality concrete. Because structures, whatever we talk, the majority of the structures, the life of the structure, it's all depends only on the concrete what we make. Okay. So unless the quality of concrete is good, the structure is not going to serve the purpose. That is the reason even IS, if you talk about in class 9.3, what they say is, as a guarantor of quality of concrete used in construction, the constructor is responsible for the quality. That means what they say is, you can do the design mix by any method. They are not worried about you have to do only as per IS 10262. You do the mix design as per any method. If you don't have knowledge on design, refer to 10262 and do the design. But the quality parameters and durability parameters, what the concrete is supposed to fulfill as per the requirement of IS 456, the contractor or the executor has to execute. That is what is very clearly spelled out as per the code. So unless the persons or the people, those who are involved in making a concrete, aware about what the part that he is supposed to do, the exact quality of concrete cannot be made, whether you are making at a site with a 10x7 mixer or with a site batching plant, or you are procuring concrete from your RMC, the quality of concrete cannot be achieved. With this note, just I'm starting. Please, sir, can you just reduce your this thing a little bit? So when you talk about concrete, concrete is the second largest, most consumed material next to water in the world. Okay. So when you talk about the world consumption in 2019, that is last year, 4.4 billion tons of concrete has been consumed. 4.4 billion tons. That is okay. And it is expected to touch something around 5.5 billion tons by 2050. This is what is the global survey. That means the demand for concrete without anything, no construction is moving or anything is moving without concrete. Concrete is what I can say is ruling the world. Without concrete, nothing is moving on. When you talk about in India, 574 million cubic meter of concrete is consumed. Roughly, we produced around 328 million metric tons of cement has been produced. Even if I assume that 70% is used for only concrete. Okay. So approximately 574 million cubic meter has been consumed in India in 1819. This is what is the consumption part of in India. Okay. That means you can just aware this consumption part means that is all concrete, whatever it is happening, whether a small house, what is constructed in a village or in a city or a multi-story structure, anything, it's all put together, roughly around 574 to 600 million cubic meter concrete every year we are consuming in India. This is what is, it's all increasing also, it's not decreasing. Year by year, it is increasing. And when you talk about mixes today, see, making a concrete mix today is a real challenge. Earlier days, when you make a concrete, the concrete was made only with the maximum grade of M40. What I'm talking is something around 20-25 years back. The highest grade concrete what has been produced was 40 or 50, not more than that. And we have very less amount of material what is available for making this concrete material. Now today, we have thrown with a lot of materials like various types of rocks available, multiple types of sands available in making a concrete. Alternative materials like fly ash, slag, silica fume, natural pozzolana, so many other materials are available. Chemical admixtures industries have grown like anything. So where we are able to make wonderful concretes with the help of chemical admixtures. So the knowledge base on all this material with subset of materials is essential in making a concrete today. Then only the producer of concrete or the concrete technologies, those who are involving in concrete making can optimize and make a concrete. Because I can say an example, optimization means, because most of the cases, whatever we are doing is design mixed concrete. Even any project site, if you take about 1 lakh cubic meter concrete, even if there is a reduction of 1 kg of cement, you are able to save 1 lakh kg of cement. 1 kg of cement per cubic meter in your design mix, you are going to save by way of your optimum design. 1 lakh kg is the savings. That is what is the optimum level of design can be done with the design mixed concrete. That means even you can support the CO2 emission, everything can be supported. It's only not only carbon reduction. Environment part also we are able to support well. So a thorough knowledge on the material base, especially cement and cementitious material, how to use them effectively and make a good quality concrete is more important. And today's scenario, the concrete grades, even the normal grade of concrete is around 80. Even if you talk about any projects in Mumbai, 50, 60, 70, 80 are the general concretes, what is happening for the past 4-5 years. Because it's all many tall towers where M80 grade was majority it is being used. Because earlier days, M80, if somebody talks about M80, no, we cannot make, like that people are talking. But today it has become a normal commodity. Even every RMC is able to make. Even M100 concretes are all also produced in some extent, and it is being consumed in project sites depending on the needs. As all of us we know, the material for concrete is common: cement, mineral additives, fine aggregate, coarse aggregate, water, chemical admixtures, and others. Generally, when somebody or a owner visits the project or a consultant visits the project, he says, yeah, you have done a beautiful concrete here. Hey, you have done a bad concrete. What made them to say that? Okay. It is not that the quality of concrete, what you have made, or the water cement ratio, or your mix proportions, or anything. It is all how the concrete is handled and placed at site only made them to make all these answers. See, they are able to comment only on this by seeing the surface finish of the concrete. It all depends only on the workmanship, how the handle is concrete is handled that side. Because production of concrete is only 15 to 20%. The remaining 80% left to the hands of the field engineers. The concrete has to perform based on the execution parameters, which is what we are going to discuss more, how to handle and make concrete here. Concrete can be made in 2 ways. One is in project sites. Generally using a 10x7 mixers in a small projects, or even for any residential building or anything, we can go with a 10x7 mixer using a nominal mixers. That is 1, 1.5, 3, 1, 2, 4 and all. The other thing is using a batching plant. When we talk about batching plant, again, the batching plant is categorized into 2 categories. One is a commercial plant where ready-mix concrete is made from a place, centralized place, and it is supplied to the project sites. The other thing is on-site or off-site batching plant, where what is made only for that particular project. So for the project need, you can install a batching plant inside the project site, and the concrete can be produced and made. Okay. IS 456 stipulates M20 as the minimum grade of concrete for structural concrete. Even today, some of the cases wherever some cases when I come across, people say I have used M15 grade concrete for structure. We are not supposed to use. After the revision of the code even in 2000, ISS made it very, very clear M20 is the minimum structural grade. That too, areas like coastal areas like in Chennai, depending on where we are near to the seashore and all, the grade of concrete should be minimum 30 when we are near to the closer to the sea, and when we go deeper, it can be M25. So depending upon the exposure condition, what has been stipulated as per the code, the concrete need to be designed. It is not that only M20 or M10 is sufficient for my loading. Depending upon the durability considerations, so these are all the parameters what has been stipulated in the code need to be followed. Okay. So the concrete shall be made as below by designing a concrete mix where the design mix concrete. It is little costly. I'm not telling design mix is not costly, because you have to study the entire behavior of material and the mix design need to be made. So it involves some money. The other thing is by adopting a nominal mix like 1, 2, 4, 1.5, 3, where we will say it's equivalent to M15, M20, M25. Okay. See, for an instance, 1, 2, 4 concrete, you are able to use a cement content of 6.4 bags, say 320 kg of cement. And we say 1, 2, 4 concrete equivalent to M15 grade concrete. The same 320 kg of cement, if you're going with a design mix concrete, if all your mix design is done well, M20 grade can be produced. And this 1, 1.5, 3, generally we take around 8.4 bags, 420, where with the 400 kg cement, if the design mix is done, in with the materials are good, even we can make a concrete of M45 or M50 grade concrete, depending upon the aggregates. So the design mix is going to give you more benefit, even though a little cost we are going to spend. Because of that, you can produce a good durable structure instead of going with a nominal concrete. The other thing is, IS also specify the quality control measures need to be made in making good concrete also has been specified at the code. They say a quality control plan need to be evolved in judging the quality of concrete, what is used in site. When it comes to site mixer concrete, the concrete with site mixture shall be made using design mix concrete converted into volume batching. You need not go for 1:3 or 1:4. So how to do that? So that you do the design mix. The design mix can be converted into volumetric batching as per the codal provisions. Even IS also specifies as per class 10.2.4, volume batching may be allowed only when wave batching is not practical and accurate. Bulk densities of material to be actually used in the concrete have been established. That means when you are able to establish the bulk density of material, you can very well convert that volume into weight, and you can do straight away. What you can do is you do the design mix by weight. Say for instance, an example also I have given. If check the density of coarse aggregate is 1500 kg per cubic meter, let me assume that. Suppose if you are using 300 kg of cement, that is 6 bags, and your 20 mm aggregate is 600 kg that you are using as per the design mix. That means per bag will be 100 kg of aggregate. So 100 kg of aggregate cannot be handled by 2 people. So 50 kg you divide in terms of boxes. Instead of making 1.25 CFT boxes, you are going to make a volumetric boxes which is equivalent to the volume of 50 kg of aggregate. So 50 kg divided by 1500, that comes 0.033 cubic meter. So 0.033 cubic meter, and the box size can be, the length and breadth can be 400 by 300. So the height should be 277. So if you are able to make a box like this for a 50 kg, 300 and 400, so the height is 277, and if you are able to fill the aggregate up to this top, there should not be any overflooding of aggregate. It should be made level. Exactly, this is going to weigh you 50 kg of material. In case of a sand, check the bulkage and correct the volume for bulkage, and the height can be suitably adjusted. So instead of 277, maybe it may be 300 or 310, depending upon the density and the bulkage volume, whatever it is happen. You reduce water and do, so that your design mix concrete as it is, you can make in your 10:7 mixes. It is as it is well and good. You can produce a good quality concrete. The structures will be more durable. When it comes to batching plant, as per IS 456, all concrete operations in the project sites need to be done by batching plant and by batching and mixing plants only. Okay, it's very clear. In batching, cement and aggregate, they say it need to be weighed by mass. Admixture, if solid, by mass. If it is liquid, either it is mass or volume. Water, either you can weigh by mass or by volume in calibrated tanks. So this is what has been very clearly spelled out. And what they say is the gradation of aggregate should be controlled by obtaining aggregates of different sizes and blending in right proportion when required. That means you don't go for a graded material, because when you go for a graded material, the gradation may not be always same when you go with a design mix. So whenever you are going for a design mix, what code insists is you go with a single size material of 20 mm separate and 10 mm separate, do gradation analysis, then blend 20 mm and 10 mm together, depending upon the grain sizes what is available, to make it as graded aggregate and use it for concrete making, so that your mixed design, whatever we are making, and the quality of concrete, whatever can make can be controlled. Only thing is, when you are making it, the separate material need to be stocked in separate stockpiles, so that the intermixing should not happen. Okay. The gradation of coarse aggregate and fine aggregate should be checked as frequently as possible, so that you are checking as when whatever the material that you have used in the mixed design, the same material is used, or the material property is not varying much, so that your property of concrete, whatever you are making, is intact as per the design. Okay. So the measurement of aggregate and material should be done in calibrated measures within the tolerances specified as per the codal provision. So there is a code called IS 4925. This 4925 is a code for batching and mixing plant. Even though 4926 or IS 456 is the code generally we follow for calibration of tolerances, this is the code what need to be followed for the batching plant calibration, where recently the code has been modified, revised. So what they say is cement and other cementitious material, the tolerance is only plus minus 1%. Earlier this was 2%. Sand and aggregate plus minus 2%. Earlier this was 3%. Water it is 1%. Admixture it is 3%. So what it says is the weighing machines, whatever it is used for weighment of aggregates in the batching plant, need to have this tolerance. And one more thing, what they say is every batch of material, what is being measured, whether it is a CP30 plant or every batch, what is measured. Suppose if you are making only 0.5 cubic meter production in the CP30 plant, even for 0.5 cubic meter, the error should be like this. Suppose you are going for a cumulative batching of 6 cubic meter in a plant on a continuous batching system. So they have given two options. So when you are going for a continuous production, then the error can be taken as a continual basis. For 6 cubic meter transit mixer production, the overall batch sheet should satisfy within the errors tolerances, whatever it has been specified. Okay. The calibration of the batching plant need to be done as below. This also they are specified. Mechanical and knife edge system at least once in every 2 months. Electrical and load cell system once in every 3 months. This is what has been specified. But if your production of concrete even in an RMC is more than 5,000 or 6,000 cubic meter in a month, do the calibration every month so that you can maintain your quality of concrete, especially your aggregate and weighment system. If you are able to maintain the calibration well, yield issue 100% you can avoid, because normally, even though this 1%, 2% variation has been given in the specification, why there should be 1 or 2% difference? You have to maintain bare minimum the weighment tolerance. Suppose if you are weighing 600 kg of aggregate, so aggregate it can differ by 2% means it is 12. You can say why it is 12 kg starts to differ. So that means 588 or 612 I can accept it. Why I should accept? See, what you can say is when you are calibrating the plant itself, the plant variations can be minimized to only 5 kg. This can be done by adjusting the material in air, what is normally calculated for the flow when the bucket is open, when the door is open and the aggregate is falling over the bucket. So they calculated certain amount of material which can flow in per minute or per second, what is the flow. And they calculate and they shut down the gate. This much of when the gate is closing, so much of material is there in the air, which also will be added. Like that, the calibration is done normally. So that by fine tuning that, you can minimize this weighing tolerance also, so that your yield issues in the batching plant can be minimized. Okay. There are 3 types of batching equipments available: rotary mixers, pan mixers, twin shaft mixers. So this rotary mixers, see earlier this larger rotary mixers were available by they were making Oru, they were making it. Now what all? These rotary mixers are not there. Now mostly it is twin shaft mixer and pan mixers are used for concrete production. Normally this twin shaft mixer is available or it is used for producing concrete even with the lower slump or even with a higher slump. Generally, it is used for making PQC so that your pavement quality concrete with 30 to 40 mm slump can be produced very effectively with the twin shaft mixers. When you go with the pan mixers, which is the most commonly used batching plants across the industry, the plant capacity is available between 30 cubic meter to 120 cubic meter per hour plants are available. The main thing is the efficiency of the concrete what is produced from the batching plant of a pan mixer depends only on the angle at which all these arms have been fixed. Okay, because all these arms are controlled by only springs, and the mixing arm and the wear plate, the gap should be only 6 millimeter. If the gap is more, automatically what happens is you will find a lot of accumulation of material at the bottom. See, generally, when we receive concrete at site, we would have observed from the transit mixer when we start delivering the concrete, we'll find a lot of aggregates which are rolling out generally. It is because the gap in the batching plant is more, so only the dry material is getting fed to the truck, so where the unmixed aggregates are only rolling out in the initial phase. So that means by doing this, we can understand the batching plants need attention. Okay, and always during maintenance, please have a check of all these wear plates and your blade position. The blade, if it is worn out, you have to check it and you have to make a change. Always adjust the springs so that the arms are in perfect position. The inclination, if it changes even a little, your mix will not be perfect. The mixing efficiency totally goes out. So always the maintenance team at the project site or in an RMC, they should look into the errors of the arms whether arms are in place as per the drawing what has been provided by the manufacturer. If it is not, it need to be corrected. Otherwise, the quality of concrete what is produced may not be of the required consistency. And when it comes to batching plant, these are all various types of plants. Nowadays, we are using a screw conveyor for delivering the material to the plant, to the stocking bin. So what happened is, if you are, because the same conveyor is used for adding 20 mm, 10 mm, crusher sand and all. If the conveyor belt is not fully empty, you are changing it and adding it. What happens is unwanted material is going to go in the other bin. Okay. It has so happened in one of the project site, not now, maybe 10, 12 years back. That time only all these conveyor belts have been introduced. So 2 batching plants went under operation. One batching plant was producing beautiful concrete of 150 mm slump concrete. Other batching plant, even we got 30 to 40 mm slump. We started the concrete and we went to site. So we were asking why it has not come. They said, sir, I'm not getting slump. When I gone up, what has happened is sand has got mixed with 10 mm. By mistake, sand has been dumped in 10 mm bin. See, the last end belt, sand has gone inside. The sand content has become more, so which has totally taken away the water. So the concrete becomes stiff. So we emptied it, we reloaded, and we started. Okay. So these are all practical issues, but it's all normally happens in the batching plant, but it need to be taken care. Unless we have a thorough inspection mechanism for doing all these things, checkpoints, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult. Nowadays, what we have done is, unless the belt is empty, you are not able to move the belt to the other system. Like that, we have made a digital system. So belt will be 100% empty only. It can move to the next bin. So like that. So you have to improvise your system to avoid this quality deficiencies. The precautions what really we need to take is store all aggregates separately in separate stockpiles, preferably under shade. Why? In today's scenario, many concrete requirements are coming with the temperature control concrete. Okay. If the aggregates is stored in an open area, it absorbs a lot of heat. So controlling temperature will be very, very difficult. So always make it as a practice, put a shed and store the aggregate. Then when using wheel loader, especially front end loader for feeding aggregate, ensure mud is not mixed, because normally the wheel loader operator may not get friction. So what he will try to do is he will push. Suppose if the aggregate stockpile is there 1 meter, even prior to that, he will start pushing everything. He will put the mud also, he will take. So ensure it some amount of material should be left, maybe around 1 or 1 feet or 2 feet material to be left, and the wheel loader need to be operated so that the material what you are using is the right material and unwanted mud is not going inside the system. Because what happened is, mud is a foreign material. When it goes inside, again your workability will drop. It's very difficult to control in a continuous operating system. If something goes wrong, it's very difficult to identify and correct it, because one is time is lost. The other thing is cost wise also it is huge. It's a huge impact on cost, so which we need to take care. When using conveyors for feeding, as I said, fully emptied before loading, identify cement silos, fly ash silos with color code. Basically, what happened is today we are using different cements, different mineral additives. Even some project sites are handling sulfate resistant cement and OPC. Some project sites are handling OPC cement and PPC cement. Some project sites are handling OPC cement, PPC cement, and fly ash and slag also separately. So depending upon the usage. Okay. So unless you identify the silo with the right color coding system, what happened is your feeding can go wrong. Wrong material can go in a wrong silo. Suppose fly ash can go into a cement silo, or cement can go in fly ash, which can create a havoc in the system. See, if the cement goes in fly ash, nothing is going to happen. Fly ash goes in cement, unknowingly finished. You will be all be assuming that fly ash cement is there in the silo, whereas you will be feeding only fly ash. After some time, your the purchaser is going to say, my concrete slab is not set. When you investigate, you will find it is full of fly ash. So what you have to do is you have to have a right mechanism to identify the material feeding in the silo so that the errors are minimized. Okay. Maintain adequate mixing time in batching plant is very, very essential. Every batching plant has got a cycle time diagram where they specify what is the minimum period needed for mixing. Generally, 30 cubic meter plant or even an M1 plant, 56 cubic meter plant, the minimum mixing time specified is 30 seconds. That is after discharging of all materials. 30 seconds is the mixing time. So this again, it varies. It is not that 30 seconds is common for everything. Okay. When you are adding microsilica or your cementitious content is above 450 kg, you should give sufficient mixing time for the material to get mixed so that you get a uniform concrete. Normally, when you are adding microsilica or your cement content or cementitious content more than 450 kg, the mixing time need to be increased to 45 seconds to 60 seconds, depending upon the content of fine material or powder material what has been added in the concrete mix design. And ensure uniform mixing of concrete produced from plant. That is, concrete what is coming out of the plant should be uniform in color. Have quality check at plant before dispatching the concrete. Here I would like to say one thing. Even though we are calling the transit mixer as a transit truck, it is not. It is only a transit truck. It is not a mixing truck. We call that as transit mixer. It doesn't have any mixing blade in it. Okay. So mixing blade, if it is available, then even dry aggregates can be feeded and you can take it to the project sites where you can add water like how it is being done in other countries can be done. Whereas that system is not there in India. We are transporting concrete only as a wet concrete, not as a dry concrete. So general tendency of the people is, no, sir, I'm going to transport it for 45 minutes. Sir. My concrete will get mixed with the transit truck. Nothing will happen because your truck during transit is going to operate only at 2 to 3 revolutions per minute. And even though it doesn't have any mixing arms inside, your concrete is not going to mix. Whatever you have dumped, that is going to be there. At least some correction can happen, but you cannot get 100% mixing of concrete when it reaches site. So don't go with the theory transit mixer will mix, because transit mixers doesn't have mixing arms. It's only a carrier. So whatever mix that you are making it, do the proper mixing, ensure it has got a uniform color before you are loading in the plant, from plant, ensure then you give a delivery. Okay. Have quick quality check at plant before dispatching the concrete at site. Because normally what happens is, after mixing concrete, generally in an RMC plant, 15 to 20 minutes is taken for preparation of DC, preparation of sample, everything. DC and all, once the truck is placed, can be made because you know to whom you are order. Even if you are able to minimize 5 minutes or 10 minutes time delay, if you are able to reduce it, the truck can reach 10 minutes earlier so that the concrete hardening, before hardening 10 minutes earlier, the concrete can go in place. So you should plan in such a way how to streamline your things so that after loading, within very short period of 5 minutes or even less, the truck has to move out from the plant. Then only the actual concrete as produced can be delivered to the site. Because normally, nowadays, none of the RMCs are, except the project sites, none of the RMCs are within near to the projects. At least it is 15-20 kilometers away. At least it, with a full truck load, it takes around 45 minutes to 1 hour for the transit trucks to move and go. So that transit time and all we are considering and we are making it. So you minimize the checking time and the preparation and pre-delivery time at the plant so that the plant truck can move very earlier from the plant. Then possible sources of contamination, what can happen at batching plant? Allowing adjacent stockpiles. If you are dumping the aggregate side by side, 20 mm, 10 mm or 20 mm sand, if there is no bifurcation available, so there is possibility for overlapping which can contaminate the aggregate. So when the contaminated aggregate is fed again, your mix design parameters will change, your concrete quality is going to change. Same I said, scooping underlying layers of soil using front end loader, already I've discussed. Dumping wrong size aggregate in a bin. 20 mm, you see, material may look like a slightly undersized, you should not go and dump it in 12 mm or 10 mm aggregate. If you are getting a perfect 20 mm aggregate, it may mislead. The same thing, 10 mm aggregate should not go to a 20 mm bin. This can happen only at night time. So we need to be very, very careful in dumping the material at night. Then aggregate leakage through and around bulkheads in storage bins. Whereas if storage bin is there, there should not be any mixing of aggregates. Even there should not be any hole or gap or anything. So that mixing also should not happen. One aggregate bin will be full, the other may be half means. From here, the aggregate should not flow to the other bin. That also you take. leaving leaves or other contaminants to fall on the aggregate stockpile. Especially sand, the tendency is people used to stack near to the tree. The leaves and all will fall. So what will happen is the organic impurities, it starts making vegetations to grow. You can find a lot of grass will grow. That is a clear indication if grass or something is growing, some organic impurity plus silt and clay is also more, because when you are otherwise silt and clay is not there, sand cannot, nothing can grow in sand because sand is a cohesionless material. Some cohesive media is there for the vegetation to grow. That is a clear indication. So as a user of the material, suppose if you find something, you have to remove the vegetation and the contaminated material, and it should not be used for concrete unless it is washed and processed. Failure to let the receiving hopper or conveyor belt on the elevator run until empty, already I have said. The supplier may have contaminated the aggregate by delivering a wrong aggregate. This also is possible. You would have added something, you would have sent something. By your delivery challan will be for some size of aggregate, but what has been available is something else. So make it as a practice always. What is the material that is reached site? Please check the material is in order. The quality of the material is in order. Then only allow to unload, so that by this you can maintain the quality. Then we are coming to transportation of concrete. When it comes to transportation of concrete, transportation can be divided into two categories major. One is horizontal movement, the other one is vertical movement. Wheelbarrows can be used for transporting smaller concrete, especially small project sites where you are doing with the mixer machine. You use wheelbarrow instead of transporting concrete manually. Put a plank, run the wheelbarrow, and you can do it. So 2.5 cubic meter in a 70-meter lead you can do per hour. Small tippers, dumpers like your front-end loaders, small loaders can be used for transporting concrete in a small project sites. It can handle up to 100 mm concrete. Tipper trucks can be suitable for stiff mixes, especially PQC and all where we are transporting it. But only thing is, ensure it there should not be any contamination happens to the material, because normally what happens is whenever the trucks are free, store will take for purchasing some other material like diesel or something. So the contaminant should not happen. Some spillover or something should not happen, so that the quality should not get, concrete should not get contaminated. Ensure it when you are engaging the tipper for concrete, ensure it is fully clean without any contaminated material. Okay. Vertical movement, you can use skips and buckets or crane, even tower crane can be used for concrete. Even the buckets which are used for transporting concrete can be fabricated for 0.5 cubic meter or 1 cubic meter capacity. Okay. Concrete pumps, which can operated for both horizontal and vertical, can handle 30 cubic meter to 100 cubic meter concrete per hour. So whatever it is, the pump is having a capacity to pump. Most of the cases, what happens is we have a production capacity. Ultimately, we will not be able to consume concrete at site. So every equipment is, we have beautiful equipments will be available, but the ultimate usage will not be happen. Okay. So pump can happen 30 to 100 cubic meter, it can pump, and even vertically it can transport up to 700 meters. Even Burj Khalifa, they have done with only single pump concrete. Pumps are available to pump even vertically up to 700 meters. Horizontally up to 1500 meters we have pumped. Even I have done up to 1.5 kilometers. Even in 2006 in Karaikal, we have done an offshore jetty. We pumped the concrete from shore. We have done it. So these are all the transit trucks. Ensure it whenever you are using a transit truck, always have the extended chute and dump the concrete, so that the concrete you are able to take as close as possible. Especially whenever you are doing a manual concrete, use this extended chute and dump the concrete. Don't dump it from the first chute, so that the concrete will tend to segregate. These transit trucks are having a capacity ranging from 3 cubic meter even to 12 cubic meter. We don't have in India 12 cubic meter plants. Some project sites are running with a 9 cubic meter plant, but the most commonly used is only 7 cubic meter, in which 6 cubic meter concrete is normally delivered. The conventional thing is, best thing is to use a wheelbarrow, where you get a better productivity as well as you can minimize the variations in concrete. So during transportation, slump loss during transportation need to be taken into account. So depending upon the distance to which you are transporting concrete, the concrete mix also need to be designed. In hot weather, the mix can stiffen very faster, and you have to protect the concrete from hardening. Okay. Then heavy rain, the mix becomes too wet. Suppose if you are transporting it, even you have to close the top mouth of the transit trucks. Nowadays, even the trucks what are coming, it is coming with some lids to close. If old trucks are there, make an arrangement to close it. As far as possible, try to avoid batching concrete in heavy rains. Okay. Mortar or slurry leak lead to workability loss. Normally, what happened is slurry, if it is lost, the concrete becomes slightly segregative. You may not get the real workability or slump what is needed for the site. Long haul, the mix can stiffen faster, especially in hot weather or for a long distance. So considering the distance to which the concrete need to be transferred, you have to design the mix. Contamination by oil, mud, dirt to be avoided. Segregation can rise by incorrect chute length or long haul, placing in a platform, remix and use. So this is what is need to be done. Especially when you are transporting concrete, even project sites will be using a chute for transporting concrete to place in a foundation. A chute inclination should be 60 degrees to avoid any segregation. So generally people will keep around 10 degrees, 20 degrees and all. They will be dumping from transit mixer. Then concrete will not flow. Somebody will be adding water to push the concrete. So you should not retamper the material. Have a proper chute with a proper slope so that as mixed, whatever concrete you receive from the truck, from the batching plant, need to go inside the foundation without undergoing any corrections. Okay. For pumping concrete, normally 75 to 110 millimeters slump is more essential. Then it is coming to site activity. We are going with placing. Placing concrete as close as possible to its final position as quickly as you can and efficiently to avoid segregation, and it can be compacted. So this is what is the objective. As per the code, what it says is the concrete shall be deposited as nearly as practicable in its final position to avoid rehandling. The concrete shall be placed and compacted before the initial setting time of concrete commences and should not be consequently disturbed. That means what they say is, suppose if I'm making a concrete, the initial setting time of concrete is 4 hours. I can handle the concrete up to 4 hours, provided the concrete mix design is having the required slump up to 4 hours, what is needed for the concrete to handle and place. It is not that I can retamper the concrete and do. I can add water, I can make it up to 4 hours. My initial setting time is 4 hours, not that. Okay. So if the workability is achieved, code says to this extent we can make it. Normally, why I want to say this is, many of these specifications says they correlate with the ambient temperature. If the ambient temperature is 20 degrees or less, the concrete can be placed up to 90 minutes. If it is more than 20 minutes, within 45 minutes or 30 minutes, concrete need to be placed, which is highly impracticable condition. Reason is, even when the concrete is mixed in a batching plant and when it is delivered to the site, that itself is going to take around half an hour to 40 minutes. So within 40 minutes after the addition of water, definitely concrete cannot reach site. My only request is, wherever such requirements falls, please ask the concrete manufacturers to do a proper trial for an extended retention, what is needed, calculate the retention, give including the handling time, what is needed for the project sites need to be considered. Then only the concrete can be placed very effectively so that it gives the realistic structure. So then see, you have to make a durable concrete. It is not that, say, I want to go only as per the code, which is highly impossible. Certain things need to be considered practical, because we are going to deal with a natural material which is made with a lot of natural material combinations. It is a material. So we need to understand the chemistry of the material also. Depending upon the ambient conditions, the setting of concrete going to vary. So, and depending upon your admixture and cement compatibility, depending upon your quality of admixture, depending upon your fineness of cement, the setting time also differs. There are a lot many things. If you want to discuss on this, we can discuss ours together. Many things are there in this. So my request is, whatever you are placing it, please see that the concrete need to go in place before the initial setting time of concrete commences. Suppose when you do the test as per 8142 and your initial setting time, if you say that you are getting 5 hours, keep 1 hour, because 5 hours is in lab. Okay. Keep 4 hours time. Within 4 hours, the concrete should go in place. Or if it is 4 hours, within 3 hours, it need to go in place. Like that, to keep consider that and design your mix so that the concrete, whatever we produce, goes in place without any difficulty, so that we are not allowing anybody to retamper the concrete at site. If you are able to give a highly workable mix, what is needed, why people are going to add water? whatever slump is needed for the people to work, if you are able to design and give to meet the quality parameters, so don't allow anybody to retamper it. Okay. So why unnecessarily a person who is not knowledgeable is going to add water and correct the concrete? That should not happen. Okay. And normally what happens is the general tendency is people will take a cube and immediately at the plant. They will say the sampling will be done at this one. Suppose somebody retampers during the process of transport or during the handling of concrete at site. The project engineer is not aware, quality control engineer is not aware. Ultimately, suppose if you are taking a sample there at site, the sample at batching plant will pass, the sample at site will fail. So when you cross check, because by the time now almost 28 days over, when you cross check it, what happened? People would have added some water. Somebody could have middled. Now the general question comes whether my structure is safe. So instead of that, why to have the ambiguity? Give a beautiful type. Don't be very adamant on this is what within 90 minutes, within half an hour you have to do. Let us be very practical. I'm not asking that you need to give a highly relaxable time. Code says an initial setting time. Do the test, ensure it. What is the time period that is allowable for the particular concrete? Because the initial setting time cannot be generalized. You have to check for every grade for every environment, every plant you need to check. So it is not that you are testing one tester and you can say for entire Chennai that is applicable. No. So for it is site specific with respect to the material and your production process and the efficiency of the mix, what you are using it. Do the test, ensure it, and you are able to transport and place the concrete within this period. Okay. So generally when I ask people, they used to say within the setting time of cement that you need to place. Setting time of cement and setting time of concretes are totally different. Let us not get confused with both. See, the objective of placing is placing concrete as close as possible to its final position quickly as you can. Deposit concrete as near as possible. Place the concrete in uniform layers, especially in columns and walls, 450 mm. So why we said 450 mm is nowadays what happens is we are going with the height of 3.6, even 4 meters, 4.2 meters. Soffit, that is floor slab top to the soffit of the slab. We are going with the single lift column, considering the projects. And majority of the columns are pumped. So when you are pumping the column, what happens is within 4 or 5 strokes, the entire column will get filled up. Normally, when you de-shed rate, you will be finding some waviness at the bottom. So that waviness is nothing but what has happened is some amount of segregation has happened to the concrete when it is pumped, passing through the reinforcement. Because today, considering the seismic design and the congestion of steel reinforcement, placing of concrete, especially in columns and all, it is very, very difficult. So what exactly we need to do is you mark either 450 or 500 millimeter first in the column. Whatever concrete is needed, only that you place, compact it well first. Then you pump anything. You are going to place the concrete over the concrete, so no segregation is going to happen and you will be able to vibrate it well. Okay. When it is make it as a practice, only 450 mm is done, compacted well, because that zone, whatever the zone, the bottom, we call that is a shear zone, that need to be done in an excellent way. The compaction should be good. So let us not make the section weaker. Okay. Don't pour anything more than 450 in the initial phase. After that, if you want to fill and do the vibration, nothing is going to happen, because the segregation part, whatever that is going to happen at the bottom, you can eliminate. Okay. Then when it goes to beams and slab, not more than 152. I'm talking about the practical requirements, what is needed to have a durable structures, because lot many errors or many people could have followed. If at all some errors are there, let us please correct, so that the structures what we build or should be a durable structure. Then to get a desired finish in walls and columns, 2 meter per height should be the core. Then successful layers before the initial setting. Normally do the initial setting time test. So suppose if you're doing a mass foundation, suppose some transit time delay has happened. Suppose if your setting time is 3 hours, initial setting time is 3 hours or 4 hours, you got some breakdown has happened in the batching plant. We try to see that within 3.5 hours or 3 hours, you are able to deliver concrete back, so that you are not creating any cold joint in the foundation. We can stitch. Okay. So the requirement is successive layers need to be placed before the initial setting time of concrete. It is not that 4 hours it has happened, concrete has hardened and it has become a construction joint. No. still it is in the green state if you are able to vibrate it. For this, what I can do is, one test what you can do is in the lab. The other thing is, depending upon the site condition, make a 300 by 300 block. Keep on vibrating the block with a needle, either 40 mm needle or a 60 mm needle. Just find out till what time you are able to close the hole when you remove the vibrator needle. What is the time? Right from your beginning to the closing of hole, when it happens, what is the time? Within that time, the concrete need to be placed. This is a more practical scenario with which you can operate at site. One is your field laboratory test. This is more practical because this need to be done in a field test, so that this gives you a clear idea within this period I need to operate, so that you are avoiding cold joints in the structure. See, construction joint is predetermined. Cold joints are what is happening during the process, which we need to avoid. Okay. Then columns and walls placing must be done in such a way that the concrete does not strike the form face or reinforcement. Suppose you are doing a fair finish concrete and the concrete what you are facing is touching the form face. When you remove the form, or what happens is it gives some patches or colors. The color variations can be seen because the latins will stick to the form. The latins during the course of concrete pouring will dry, and a thin layer of can be stick to the concrete when we remove. So thin layers can be seen, resulting in color variations. See that you are not striking the form. Same way, reinforcement also should not be struck, because when the concrete touches the reinforcement, segregation can happen. Okay. So make it as a practice. Suppose if you are placing concrete, have a plywood on the side, pour concrete on the ply, allow the concrete to flow through the cover zone, because the minimum cover whatever we are having is 30 millimeter or 40 millimeter. Your maximum size of aggregate is only 20. Easily it can flow. Have a ply, inclined ply just outside the form, pour the concrete through the ply, let it go through the cover zone so that the concrete flows easily and you are also able to compact it well. Or if you have a clear-cut provisions available, if you are able to insert a tremie or something, insert a tremie and do the concrete so that the free fall height is reduced. So this is the pump, static pump. Everyone we know this is a boom placer. Boom placers are available 36 meters, even 52 meters boom placers are available. But in India, the 52 meter is not there. So this is boom placer. The purpose of the boom placer is it can travel anywhere, even through to the sides of the structures and all. It can be placed. Whereas static pump, it needs a fixed line. Whereas in the case of boom placer, that is not the need. And when concrete, everyone we know the concrete is poured here. What happens, how the pump is working means it has got two pistons. It works in a reciprocating action. When one piston sucks, the other one pushes out. In a static pump, it goes horizontally out. In a boom placer, it goes vertically up. That's all. The system is same. So these are all some of the photographs where boom placers have been very effectively placed and used concrete. But one thing I would like to say, the free fall height, when we are talking, we need to be a little careful, because normally the concrete, it goes in the boom placer up to here with pressure. Then from here, it falls with the free fall. Normally around 15 to 18 meters length, it falls in a free fall. So what you have to do is try to bring the hose as low as possible. Bend the hose at the bottom. The hose can be bent to a 90 degree, or what we can do is, here you will find a bend. This bend can be reversed. When you reverse bend, what will happen is the free fall concrete, whatever happens here, the concrete will get accumulated here, and when it is pumping, a uniform concrete will get pumped and come. So now this is a straight 90 bend. That straight 90 bend, if you are reversing it, you can get a good quality concrete, so that the concrete falls only with the 6 meter length pipeline. Nothing happens. Okay, so you can get a full hose length of concrete, because normally what we would have observed is the pipeline, full pipeline concrete doesn't come. Generally, it falls like a half water, how it flows, like that only concrete flows generally with the boom placer. So when you do that, you'll be able to get a good concrete, like how concrete comes with the static pump, the same way you can get, and the segregation of concrete also can be avoided. When we talk about free fall height, federal highways are permitted 46 meter free fall, that is 150 feet free fall. They say the concrete mix, whatever we are designing or using, the mix should be designed in such a way, when it falls from that height, it should not show any segregation, or the properties of the concrete should not differ. When it comes to Indian standard says maybe restricted to 1.5 meter. Okay. Even though a lot of changes have happened in the code, lot of concrete changes have happened, lot of design parameters have changed, but still this parameter of restricted to 1. The code has not changed. What has happened is, even if you're talking about 1.5 meter, completing the project site with 1.5 meter is very difficult, that we don't have sufficient time to complete the job. That is one. Secondary thing is, what they say is it may be restricted, then people will say you inserted trimming. By the way in which the design of reinforcement is happening, considering the seismic, it's even very difficult to insert anything inside. Some cases in project sites, even we observed, without formwork, if we stand in the opposite side, we are not able to see each other. To that extent, the density of reinforcement is there. So in such cases, what you have to do is, suppose if you are going with the high lift column and all, don't go with the normal slumpable concrete of 100 mm or 120 mm and all. Go with the self-compacting concrete or high flow concrete, where you can design a mix like a piling concrete of around 200 or 220 mm slump, where your flow will be around 400 to 450 millimeter. Use such concrete and do a slight tampering on the top, or you can use a 25 mm needle and compact it so that the segregation can be avoided. Only thing is, depending upon the situation, design a mix and place the concrete so that the structure is safe. The ultimate idea is we have to make a defect-free structure. When the concrete is placed by pump, the mix designed to satisfy the requirement of pump manufacturer's specification. Normal slump is 75 to 110 millimeter is ideal. Cement content or cementitious content should not be less than 280 kg per cubic meter. That is a minimum mandate for a smooth pumping. People can say, I can pump a PCC even with the 220. You can pump, but many times the pumping will get choked. If you have a cementitious composite of around 280 with sufficient sand content, so the pumping may become easier. Combined aggregate grading need to be used. Slightly increased sand content, maybe to 40 to 45% of total aggregate, if it is there. Depending upon the finest modulus, you need to decide and add. Normal practices, when you are making an all-in aggregate grading, suppose if you are using a 20 mm aggregate with an all-in aggregate grading, 20 mm should pass 9500. They say 4.75 is 30 to 50. That 30 to 50, you can make something around 38 to 42% if you are able to make. Your mix will be a perfect mix, because the 4.75 is a transition zone between your coarse and fine. If you are able to make a concrete of such kind, your mix will be perfect. So to achieve that, if you have around 40 to 45% of sand in your mix, definitely your concrete will be highly workable. Okay. Then material finer than 300 microns in sand should be at least 15% and 450 kg per cubic meter in a 20 mm aggregate. Suppose including your cement and sand, what is passing in sand and cement, the overall weight should be 450 kg for a 20 mm aggregate. If it is there, the pump can work without any issue. Pump can pump freely. Okay. Avoid water addition at site. Follow safety requirements of the manufacturer. One thing I will like to say, we are all doing concrete, but if you talk pump, that is the best quality control engineer in the world. Even a small variation in concrete, the pump will go for a choke. If your pump is working well, don't worry about your quality of concrete. If your quality of concrete is bad, pump will choke immediately. Okay. See, it also can accommodate up to certain fluctuations in slump, not segregatable concrete and all. See, as I said, reciprocating motion when it is sucking, when it sucks itself in the mouth, the concrete will choke. So pump is the best quality control manager available in the world. When the pump is working well, don't worry about the quality of concrete. I would like to say this. The thing is leveling. Again, why we need to level concrete? So we need to stop the structures at various levels to various floor levels and all. That is one. Suppose if you're doing flooring, you have to stop at certain level. There are various methods available for leveling of concrete. There is no hard and fast. This is what we have to do. Depending upon the project size, the things can be happen. But generally, people will be using a straight edge for making a normal level. Then, or they'll be giving a wooden peg. For suppose if you're doing a slab, they'll have a wooden peg. They will keep on continuously measuring whether the thickness is okay. Normally, survey lines will be given. From survey lines, the level will be checked. Like that, all you can make it. Nowadays, what happens is this laser screed is also available. Laser screed is available where undulations in concrete can be minimized. That is also possible, where your slump of concrete need to be around 140 to 150 millimeter, where you need to place something around 40 cubic meter per hour. That's a requirement of concrete what needed for the leveler and screeder. Then only it will be very effectively will be able to place and compact the concrete well. So where here the laser, you can give a level through the laser where the machine can do a compaction of 2 to 3 millimeter variations within the allowable tolerance. And normally the level difference, what we are observing is maybe in meters length. See, the difference may be 3 millimeter. So that can happen. In other project sites, even you can use a bull float for making, because normally in Indian condition, we are not using bull float at all. Bull float can be used for making the concrete finish, so that the finish can happen in an excellent way, leveling can happen, because straight edge also can be used for making leveling. It's not that you should not use. So depending upon the volume, we can decide on what type of equipment is needed. Only for the larger scale or for an industrial flooring and all, if you are thinking for, then laser screed is the best, where we can do the job in the more with the stringent quality norms, we'll be able to deliver. When it comes to compaction, why we need to compact concrete? Compaction of concrete is more essential to remove the air entrapped in concrete. And is there any correlation to slump? Yes. Higher the slump of concrete, you have to compact it less. Lower the slump of concrete, you have to compact it more. The reason is when you are compacting it, the concrete is going to move. So if fluid concrete, you should not compact more, it will segregate. Lesser slump concrete, if you are not compacting well, it may not flow. So depending upon the slump, the compaction time also need to be verified. What will happen in case if I am not compacting well, and how much of reduction in strength? Definitely voids are going to be there inside concrete if compaction is not going to happen. And 1% void in concrete is going to reduce 5% strength. 1% of void left is going to reduce the strength of concrete by 5%. Please remember. Now, let us see how to compact. See, you are able to see 3 different layers. This is old concrete. Old means not too old. This is third layer, second layer, first layer. That means this is the freshly laid layer. So the vibrator needle has to percolate to the previously laid concrete, as I said, so that the stitching of this layer and this layer happens. That is the reason if stitching has happened, we will not be able to see the layer lines on the sides. In how many layers you are able to, you are poured the concrete, we are not able to see is because the stitching generally happens. Okay. So the vibrator needle has to percolate on its own weight without any pressure to the bottom of the layer, at least 250 mm, and the stitching should happen. So this is what is the process of compaction with the needle, and it has got the time limitations. So there are 3 types of needles available. One is mold vibrator, the other one is poker needle, the thing is screed vibrator. Mold vibrators are generally used for precast applications, and screed generally commonly used is poker needle. Okay, and the screed vibrators we are using for a lot of payments, or where we have a larger area of slab. The same mold vibrator can be mounted on a channel, and the channel can be pushed and the compaction can happen. Okay, the process is as you shake and vibrate the concrete, the air is pushed out. This is what is the process. Now let us see staging. When you insert the needle, what happens is the process is when you insert the needle, liquefaction of concrete happens, which allows the concrete to slump and fill the form. That means when I am inserting the needle, the concrete is becoming liquid and it goes and fills the form, and the concrete forms its shape. For that, it needs hardly 3 to 5 seconds. Okay, and I am continuing my compaction. The continuing compaction, what I am doing is, so I am keeping on vibrating it. So what I will do is, I'll up and down, I'll push the needle. When I am pushing up and down, what happens is the air bubble will start coming out. When the air bubble starts coming out, you will be able to see the concrete will start revolving surrounding the vibrator needle. When you are able to see that location compaction is over, you have to slowly withdraw. That needs hardly 7 to 15 seconds. That means as a whole, suppose if I'm inserting a vibrator needle in a position, hardly 10 to 20 seconds only is the time needed for compaction. This again depends on this 10 to 20 seconds depends upon the type of slump. As I said, depending upon the workability, the compaction time need to be checked. Now, you are seeing top 4 circles and bottom some overlapped circles. So if you talk about this, when I'm inserting a needle here, the compaction happens only up to this. This all looks like uncompacted surface. Suppose if I'm compacting a slab, even if I'm standing 5 meters away, I'll be able to feel the vibration. That doesn't mean the concrete at 5 meters is also getting compacted. So wherever I'm inserting a needle, the needle has got a tendency to compact a particular radius of action area only. Other than that, the compaction doesn't happen. Okay. So for which, what we need to do is we have to overlap and do. So if we see this, generally we use 40 mm needle or 60 mm needle for compaction. And nowadays, most of the concrete, whatever we are making is more than 75 mm slump. In case if it is a 40 mm needle and the slump is more than 75, it can compact 250 to 350 millimeter area. That means this area is only 250 to 350 millimeter if this is a 40 mm needle. If this is a 60 mm needle, it can compact 400 to 500 millimeter. That's all. 400 to 500 millimeter area only it can compact. That means other than 500, whatever area, even though I am able to stand here, I'll be able to get the feeling concrete is not getting compacted. Let us be very clear about the process. So what we need to do is every 1 feet, suppose if you are using a 60 mm needle, every 1 feet you have to insert a needle so that you are overlapping and compacting. So you are ensuring the entire area is compacted well. Clear? And always see that you have a hand lamp to see the concrete, what is placed in walls and columns, so that you are ensuring the fullest compaction is happening. The process is insert the needle quickly. As you insert the needle quickly, the concrete becomes liquid and flows, and pull it out slowly. When you take it out slowly, the hole should get closed. So this is a process. So never touch the form face with the poker. And one more thing before that I want to say, suppose if you are using a 40 mm needle, you can compact only 5 cubic meter, 4 to 6 cubic meter concrete per hour. In case if you are using 7 plus 75 mm slump concrete, if you are using 60 mm needle, you can compact only 8 to 12 cubic meter concrete. So this is what is possible with a single needle. Okay. Never touch the form face with a poker. Normally the bulging will happen. And never touch the reinforcement with the poker. You can get a beautiful vibration because vibration will get transferred everywhere through the steel because steel is interconnected. But what happened is the steel also will get displaced. Your needle will get cut. Don't do this. When it comes to finishing and surface preparation, do the first finish with the after compaction. The mason will do the finishing with the float or straight edge and all. After some time, you will find bleed water will come on the surface. Concrete has to bleed. Don't see that concrete should not bleed. Concrete has to bleed. Some amount of bleeding should happen. Water should not flow. Bleed water should not flow like a river. Some amount of bleeding should happen. Okay. So during that process of bleeding, what happens is you will find some cracks. Okay. I'll tell you that how to do that. Then what you have to do is you have to send the mason back after 3 to 4 hours with a wooden float and tamp the entire surface. It is not only the cracked surface, entire surface you have to tamp it only with the wooden float, and you have to finish it in a circular manner so that the concrete surface becomes rough. If any other finishing need to be done like a power trowel finish or something, you can do it. Suppose your slab is having a secondary finish of flooring or something, better to go for a broom finish. Don't insist on a trowel finish because trowel finish will induce a lot of cracks. The smoother the surface, the cracking tendency will be much more. Okay. Unless it is warranted, don't insist every slab need to be finished with a trowel, power trowel. Okay. If you have a floor finishes and other things are there, if you don't have anything, it's okay. If you have floor finish or something, better to go for a broom finish, make the surface rough so that you are avoiding the concrete from cracking. That is one. And never allow anybody to walk on the concrete. We are not Neil Armstrong to put our foot on the concrete like how he has made on moon. No one should walk on the concrete because it looks very ugly. Okay. So, and never load the structure. You should not see today you have done the concrete, tomorrow morning you should not go and dump material on the top. Concrete is still green. At least allow it to harden for 24 hours. And I am not asking you to stop the work. Do the work. What is needed for the activity only, take the material and do the job. Never load the structure unwantedly. Okay. Because concrete is still green. It may lead to concrete to crack with the extra load what we are giving. Okay. And before, if subsequent activity need to happen, discuss with the designer where and all that you can distribute the load and keep. Without the concurrence of designer, don't load. Please check, then you can do the subsequent activity. And dry shake, never do unless it is warranted for a floor finish where floor hardness or need to be done. Generally, floor hardness, what we will do is after the compaction, we will sprinkle. Even we will not do the finishing, we will just sprinkle. This dry shake, whatever I am talking is, suppose I am doing a power trowel finish. Okay, concrete is slightly hardened. So what I will do, my power float will not move. I'll put some cement slurry, I'll sprinkle on the top and I'll do. Okay. Or I have found some cracker. Immediately I'll mix some cement slurry, I'll put the cement slurry over it. Or I'll spray some cement on the top. Hey, concrete is bleeding. Put some cement on the top to absorb the water. Those things and all should not be done. If you whatever we are doing it, nothing is going to go within the concrete. On drying, everything is going to peel and come. Okay. Concrete is a material when you are mixing it in the batching plant, whatever you are adding it, you can add. After that, whatever you are adding outside, nothing will go inside concrete, it will show his face. It will all come as a secondary finish, whatever you are adding. See, many people are talking about my floor is dusting. If you really go in detail, what has happened is they would have done some mistake for finishing, they would have added some cement slurry. Or they would have sprinkled excess water for finishing. Those things and all is resulting in such defects. So don't do anything. There should not be any material sprinkle on the surface of the concrete. When it comes to production and curing, which is very, very essential because the purpose of production and curing is when cement mixed with water, hydration starts. This makes cement and hence concrete becomes hard to develop strength. This strength development will take place only if the concrete is kept moist at a favorable temperature, especially first few days. Okay. So the basic thing is you can decide upon the various methods of curing. Either you can go for a ponding, or you can go for a sprinkling or spraying, or you can use damp sand, or you can use hessian cloth, damp hessian cloth, or even you can use a polythene sheet, plastic sheet to cover the concrete, whatever it has been finished. So these are all the things going to help you in protecting the internal moisture from evaporation. See, the purpose of curing is you are providing a media for evaporation and you are preventing the water what is there inside concrete kept as it is. That's all. Concrete is not going to absorb any water. People will say concrete is dry when you are not pouring it. Why it is dry means if it is dry, internal water will come to the surface, it will start cracking. So those things and all can be avoided by providing a media of cracking. It not necessarily you have to flood. You have to keep the area moist. If you are able to cover the area moist, then the cracking tendency can be minimized. Normally, after finishing it, if possible, cover it with a plastic sheet totally or put a hessian cloth, sprinkle water. Generally, uncured surface of concrete, if not at all doing curing, then it gives only 45 to 60% strength. If I am curing the concrete for 3 days, it gives 60 to 80% strength. If I am curing it for 7 days, it gives 90 to 100% strength. If I am curing it for 28 days, it gives 135%. Again, I am telling you, curing means keeping the area moist. If you are able to keep the surface moist so that the internal water will not evaporate, that's all. You should not flood. Normally, what happens is you will be making a bunt and you will be flooding water. So, subsequent activity should happen. People will break the bunt, the water will flow. The concrete slab surface will become dry. Doesn't matter. Put somebody, sprinkle water always. Don't allow the surface to become dry. See that the surface is always wet. Wet surface people can work. When water is standing, nobody is likely to work. So keep the surface moist, or put some hessian cloth, continuously pour water, cover the surface, or place a plastic sheet. Even if the evaporation happens, the water will get condensed and it will fall inside. No water will go out. So these are all the precautions what we can take to help curing of structure. So these are all the methods. Anything can be used. There is no hard and fast rule. This is what you have to follow. Whether you can use curing compound or you can use water, depending upon the shape. Okay. Again, when it comes to curing compound, there are two different types of curing compound available. One is acrylic based, the other one is wax based. Depending upon your secondary finish, suppose you have any secondary finish available, subsequent finishes like your painting or your tailing or anything is there, or your wall finishing or something is there, go with only acrylic based. Don't go with wax based, because once wax based is done means you will not be able to remove the wax based curing compound from the surface. Nothing will get adhere. It's very, very difficult. Probably you have to grind and remove the surface, then you have to do. So instead of that, go for an acrylic based curing compound. Preferably, most of the curing compounds come only colorless. Only to identify whether you have applied or not, pigments are getting added. Tell to the manufacturer, ask him to add a light pigment of white. White also should not be too thicky, because it becomes like a whitewash. It will be visible. It takes some months for the white color also to get faded. Okay. Generally, people used to ask, I'm added a water-based curing compound, whether I need to scrap the surface to do the activity. Nothing. When you're going with an acrylic base, you can continue, because all bonding, everything can happen. Only wax is having an issue. Depending upon the surface, depending upon the element, depend on the shape of the element, you just decide what type of curing is best for the structure. Ensure in the structures, internal water is kept. That's all. Common cracks. Generally, when we pour concrete at site, cracks can happen. Crack is an unavoidable phenomena in concrete, because it's a natural material. Concrete will crack. We cannot say concrete will not crack. Concrete will crack. Generally, we used to say that too in the initial phases. What we used to say is you allow the concrete to crack, because normally when the concrete is in the green state, shrinkage cracks generally come. This is the pattern of shrinkage crack. Okay. The pattern is normally haphazard cracks, in haphazard parallel cracks, or even interconnected cracks also will be there, but it is all in haphazard nature. That is one. Shrinkage cracks normally happens, it's due to the moisture movement from the surface. That is the reason we are telling you, please cure the surface and keep it moist. When the concrete loses water from the surface, drying and wetting can happen on the surface, which will lead to cracking of the surface, the surface will shrink and crack. Okay. Then ambient temperature more than 20 degrees and the wind velocity more than 5 miles per hour, that is 8 kilometers. That means it's a very, very common phenomena. The wind, what is blowing is 8 kilometers. And one more thing also I would like to say, sir, I have done concrete in the daytime. Nighttime, it doesn't require any attention because there is no sunlight. Nothing. Nighttime, you have wind. Worser shrinkage crack happens only at night than in daytime, because wind carries a lot of water. Excess water goes in nighttime. So we need to prevent the concrete, whether it is daytime or nighttime, from shrinkage. Please keep this in mind. Okay. So don't carry with your this thing, morning, whatever I have done, nothing will happen in daytime or nighttime. Concrete doesn't know day or night. Concrete is concrete. It will show his face if it is not handled properly. Okay. Then plastic settlement. Excess bleeding on the surface. Top cover to the reinforcement is less. Level to the concrete is less. That means this plastic settlement is nothing but after placement of concrete, you can see some layer lines. That means layer line means what is the reinforcement pattern you will be able to see on the top surface. Don't get panic with that. This is normally visible within 10 minutes to 3 hours of placement of concrete. Okay. So I'll discuss this in detail, how to avoid. So these are all some of the photographs of plastic shrinkage cracks. Now, as I said, the finishing activity is same. Do the initial finish, bleed water, please wait till the bleed water evaporates. Now mason has to go only with the wooden float. This is what is the wooden float. Don't use any steel material. If you are using steel material, the surface will become more smoother. Smoother the surface, the cracking tendency will be much, much more. You have to make it rougher. So by using this wooden float, what happens is the wooden grains form a thin grains on the surface of the concrete, so that the concrete surface is rough and it doesn't crack. Okay. So ask the mason to tap the entire surface of the slab with the wooden floor in a circular manner. You need to finish. If at all any secondary finish is needed with additional finishing, what all do it. Start curing after 5 to 6 hours. It is not that after 24 hours only concrete need to be cured or 12 hours concrete need to be cured. When the concrete attains touch hard state, you can start. That means concrete attains its initial setting time. Just you can start pouring water or curing it. You need not pressurize water. Just put the hose in case of a slab. Make a bund, put the water, just hose, allow the water to float. That's all. Let it be there inside. So that you are ensuring it, no water from the initial phase itself, nothing goes. By this, what happens is you are allowing the concrete to crack whatever cracks are happened in this state. By doing a secondary finish tapering, you are closing the crack because the crack, whatever it has formed, is hardly 0.5 millimeter in width and maybe 2 to 3 millimeter in deep. So when you tap the surface, the slurry, whatever that is getting accumulated, will close the crack, and the crack concrete will not crack further because you are allowing it and you are closing the entire phenomenon. Suppose by seeing the crack, if I am adding cement, I am adding cement to close the crack, or I have not unattended the crack. This is what is the phenomena it's going to happen. You will be able to close the crack on the top, but the concrete will percolate to the depth. The crack will percolate to the depth of the concrete. On removal, you will be finding white patches. These are all calcium hydroxide water leached out. Some cases it get closed. Sometimes even the water, the slab can leak. Okay. So this is a bad sign, even though structurally nothing wrong with this, but the acceptability point of view, everybody will get panic by seeing such cracks. So better to avoid this is, as I said, secondary finish is a must. Delayed finish, send the mason back after 3 to 4 hours, damp the entire surface, finish it off in a circular manner with the wooden float, start early curing after 1 or 2 hours of the concrete to prevent, so that you are able to tackle the entire surface of the concrete from shrinkage. Plastic settlement. You can see concrete bleeds, the bleed water comes out. So when the bleed water comes out, the concrete want to settle. Since reinforcement bars are rigid members, which are not allowing the concrete to settle, still concrete settles, which leaves a line on the top of the bar. That means you are able to see the layer lines at which the reinforcement is laid. That's all. The only problem with this is it creates a void at the bottom of the reinforcement, because since it is settling, the reinforcement bond strength is lost in this. Some amount, to some extent, the bond is lost. So what we can do is, whenever you are observing this, don't get panic, because this is a natural phenomenon. Suppose if you are doing a slump of concrete, then what is needed, a higher slump you are doing it, or where the accumulation of slurry is more during the finish, where at the mason has finished the slurry, he has pushed the slurry to some extent, one end where it has happened. It all could have happened, or you are covered to the reinforcement bar is less, and all it can happen. So such cases, once if you are seeing that, place some concrete in that location, revibrate it. That's all, simple. When you revibrate it, you are able to close everything. Okay, so these two are the fundamental cracks what generally happens, plastic settlement and plastic shrinkage, in handling concrete in the green state. Okay, so revibration is the major cause. So other than that, there are various other types of cracks available, like early thermal contraction. Suppose if I am using high strength concrete in a column, okay, see the high strength concrete, normally the heat of hydration will be very high. If you are able to remove the column side surface and all before 24 hours, is okay, because the heat dissipation can happen, so that the concrete doesn't have much of a thermal shock. Don't keep the shutter for 3 days or 4 days. Then after that, when you remove it, the internal temperature may be around 65 to 70 degrees, and your ambient temperature may be 30. There will be a sudden release of 30 to 35 degrees temperature from the concrete to the external ambient, which makes the surface of the concrete crack. This thermal shock can make the concrete to crack. This normally happens in thicker wall sections and where high strength concrete of M50 and above is used, especially circular columns or larger columns, and all it normally happens. Crazing cracks. Crazing cracks is nothing but spider net cracks. Normally, suppose in a plaster surface, if you pour water after a week or 10 days, where you are able to see a lot of octagonal cracks. Similar cracks are called as crazing. These cracks can happen normally in case of a slab or a foundation where an excess compaction has happened and an excess slurry accumulation can happen on the top. You can see some white patches on the top, then the white patches will slowly break. The breaking will happen like a clay, how it breaks when the clay dries, like that it will break. It's all crazing cracks. Okay. To avoid this, see that the concrete is not over vibrated. See, adequate vibration need to be done, and excess wherever slurry accumulation is there, those slurry accumulations need to be replaced with good quality concrete, and slurry need to be avoided. Slurry filling need to be avoided. You need not to worry about this. So this can happen even if you are not curing proper. Crazing can happen. Suppose you have done a smooth finish, power trowel finish, and the curing is not done proper on the floor. What happens is the floor will have very, very minute cracking. After 10 days, if you pour water now, you can find all these octagonal cracks on the floor surface. These are all crazing cracks. Okay. Then drying shrinkage, it can happen any moment, weeks, months, or years together. Even after 1 year also it can happen. It all depends on the moisture movement from the surface of the concrete. Then construction movement, suppose if you are doing a subgrade, where your subgrade is not filled proper or the compaction of the soil has not happened proper. See, the foundation former can move, the concrete can settle and crack. That is construction movement. Whenever the flooring has been done by mistake for a subsequent activity, some equipments have been moved on the top, which locally crushes the concrete. So this is the indication of various cracks. This is theory thermal contraction. These are all crazing cracks. These are all, if you talk about plastic shrinkage cracks. Sorry. And this is accident overload. This is drying shrinkage crack, because normally drying shrinkage crack, if you see that the doors and window frames, whatever we have fixed, you see here, doors and window frames, after fixing it, you can find the walls some cracks, because the thermal expansion of this and this is totally different. When this is shrinking, this is inducing a crack here. This is all drying shrinkage cracks. Okay. And these are all thermal cracks. So you are able to see. When this thing is, whenever you are able to see a crack on the slab, okay, don't simply jump on to a conclusion it is happened only due to shrinkage or this shrinkage crack. Anyhow, you can see in the initial phase by seeing the pattern and all. Every crack is not shrinkage crack. Okay, so it need to be analyzed by an expert who can understand the concrete phenomena. Then accordingly, the rectification methods also need to be derived, because rectification method is not common for all types of cracks. Depending upon the cracking phenomena, depending upon the tendency, depending upon the loading structure, loads what is applicable in the structure, the rectification methodology need to be given, and the rectification process can happen. But cracks are not harmful in concrete except unless it is structural. Okay, so don't jump on to conclusion, especially if you are able to take care of the concrete well during in the green state, and if you are able to take care of the plastic shrinkage and plastic settlement, 99.99% of the issues in the structures are resolved. Because majority of the issue happens only after deshuttering. We are telling cracks are there, it has started leaking and all. So kill the crack, allow the concrete to crack in the green state, kill it with the secondary finish. Normally for doing this, you have to put a separate mason. Don't put the same mason to go and finish. By the time you will say, hey, you finish this and go. When you go, this fellow also will move out. You put some separate mason, put a separate supervisor, ask him to finish and start curing. And if you are able to protect it, the structure will be safe. Thank you for patient listening.
I think that was a wonderful presentation, sir. You had, in fact, covered the practical aspects on how to avoid cracks and how to do volume to weight batching. And a very important point of the minimum grade of concrete that should be used should be M20 for RCC works, which normally is not followed, especially in small sites, which is a very important point. And I think the practical implication, how to do compaction, leveling, finishing, was really an eye-opener. And you had covered the practical aspects. Now, shall we take a few questions?
Yeah.
One of the questions that is being asked is that, like for concrete, we are using so many material which is different from each other. We are using cement, we are using aggregates, admixtures, cement. A lot of types of cements are there. Even for Ramco Cement is manufacturing 12 different types of cement for different applications. Now the thing is, you're able to hear? I think there is a problem. So the thing is that I was just wanting to ask him whether ordinary Portland cement is better or Portland Pozzolana cement or blended cements are better for concrete. So I'm sure that, in terms of what he has covered now, heat of hydration, occurrence of cracks and things like that, I think one should go in for a cementitious material or blended cement. So that was the clarification wanted. So, and he has covered all the practical aspects. Now, for the future webinars, tomorrow we have a webinar on.
1 minute. My internet has got disconnected. 1 minute.
All right. Please take. So meanwhile, I'll just tell about tomorrow's webinar. Tomorrow we have a webinar at 4 p.m. on concrete for nuclear structures. And then after that, 14 to 17, we have a series of lectures on geotechnical engineering. That is, there is a geotechnical conference which is being organized by the Association of Consulting Civil Engineers, Mysore, and there will be a series of lectures. It's okay, sir? Are you connected now?
It's okay. You can connect.
What I was just wanting to say is that ordinary Portland cement or blended cement, which type of cement would be better for concrete? What is your view on that? Having made so many concrete, throughout your life now.
See, suppose in a project site, if you talk about if it is a voluminous concrete where we'll be handling different concrete, maybe we'll be handling even M20 or we'll be handling even M80. In such cases, the preference is to go with the addition of supplementary materials at site, because what happened is when you go with the PPC cement, there is a limitation of using the cement up to certain grade because of the fly ash addition. What happens? See, suppose if I'm going with an M80 grade concrete, I may add a fly ash of even 15%, and I can make the cementitious material and I can do a concrete. Whereas if I go with a PPC, it's not possible. So PPC normally you can use up to M35 to M40 grade concrete wherever it is available, where we can go for. Okay, and normally for a residential construction, even if you take a small residential constructions like those who are constructing one house, two houses, and all, if they are going for, better to go with PPC cement or a slag cement, or nowadays even the composite cement is available. The reason is the earlier phenomena. If you talk about when we talk about fly ash and all, people used to say people have added ash and the structure has failed. Whereas ash is a very good, fly ash is a very good element, pozzolanic material, which increases the strength. So if the structure want to be durable, or if you want the life need to be increased for the concrete, better to go with PPC cement for a normal site operations than OPC. So, and moreover, see, generally if you talk about how, suppose if I am constructing a house, my own house, my grade of concrete, maybe I may be constructing G+1. My grade requirement cannot be more than M20 if I am even considering the loading pattern. Why I should go for a 53 grade cement and induce a lot of cracking and all? I can go for a lower grade cement of PPC, then I can do the construction so that the structure also is safer. And since the grade of concrete is less, so depending upon the gradal requirement can be used. For a small project sites, PPC can be used. It's not necessarily you have to go only for OPC, especially those who are doing residential constructions. It's better to go with PPC or blended cement to keep the structures more safe in today's scenario, because today the environment condition is changing like anything. That is the reason even code also suggests to go with all supplementary materials, they give more importance for durability and all. When you consider the durability parameters, when you go with the blended materials, it's very, very essential. So small project sites where you cannot handle or where you cannot blend materials together, go with the pre-packed material, what is available. Where in the major project sites, if you want to blend, or if you have, depending upon the concrete volume and all, can be decided. But using PPC or slag is more beneficial. Whether you are going with the, see, if we are in a project size, if I'm blending it, again, I'm going to make it. See, the only leverage is, depending upon the grade of concrete, I'm going to add the percentage. That's all. Instead, suppose a PPC cement can come with the 28% or 30% or 35% fly ash. The same thing, if I am making a concrete at site, for an M50 grade concrete, I may use 25%. For an M60 grade concrete, I may use 15%. That's all.
Yeah,
so that leverage only can take it. That's all.
So you're just thrown light over the different types of cement. Another thing is that now that we have covered mineral admixtures, some of the question that is being asked is about chemical admixtures, waterproofing agents. Is it required to be added in concrete? Should we add waterproofing agents, integral waterproofing compounds?
No, integral waterproofing compounds normally in project sites, what is being done is for foundation level, if the water table is high, it is being done. Okay. Otherwise, for superstructure and all, it is not at all required. Whereas chemical admixtures, you can use it. Reason is, when you reduce the water what is used for making concrete, say for instance, even if you are making an 1-4 concrete, okay, 1-4 concrete as per the requirement, you can go with 30 liters of water as per the code. Okay. Instead of adding 30 liters of water, add 20 liters water, add 100 ml of admixture. You get the same workability. Your structure will be safe.
So that means mineral admixtures.
Chemical admixtures can be added. Suppose if you are using a foundation where really there is a need for your waterproofing compound, where the water table is high, where there is a possibility of water ingress or you suspect any porosity and all, then it can be added depending upon the case. But for superstructure, waterproofing is not at all required. Okay, especially where you are doing a slab, column and all, it is not at all needed. Suppose if you are doing a roof slab screed, then we can think of that. To today's scenario, lot of materials have come in picture for waterproofing. Okay. Lot of elastomeric membrane or coating, even cementitious membranes, lot of things are there. Because earlier days we used to go with the brickbat coba and all. Because today's scenario, we don't have good labors to do even brickbat coba. Because the technology itself was lost. People are not able to do. So a lot of chemical additives are available. So depending upon the situations, it will be decided for. But general concrete addition of waterproofing chemical is not.
Fair enough. That's very clear. Because the thing is that case-to-case situation, it changes. For special structures where water table is very high, one should go in for waterproofing. That's a very practical aspect of it. So that's and your presentation was really,
sure. If one or two questions are there, we can take, not an issue.
Oh, is it? Okay. Then there are questions, in fact. One question for metro type work, is it good to use PPC? How much percentage of PPC should be used for maximum grade? That you have already covered now. You have already said, no, the maximum grade of concrete for which it has to be used and all that. I think you have already answered this question. Another question which is being asked, what about the fineness of cement? What do you suggest? How this property influences the strength? Because you have PPC, minimum fineness is 300 meters square per kg, OPC 225 meters square per kg. How does it influence the concrete strength?
Oh, definitely. See, finer the cement, normally the yearly strength gain will be high. Okay. Even if you talk about a sleeper cement, where they specify a fineness of 375, whereas for concrete, whatever we are talking about 53 grade cement, it talks about only 225 square meters per kg. Whereas if you go with the sleeper grade cement, it talks about 375. So the parameters differs. So higher the grade of concrete, if you go for, the finer the cement is better. But normally too high fines also is going to generate a lot of heat. Okay. So basically, the finer the cement, what happens is the grading of fines particle between 0 to 90 microns on what bandwidth it is going to come is also matters. Because normally it should be uniformly graded. Then otherwise what will happen is every cement will react in the initial phase itself, which will give a lot of heat to the structure. The structure will unnecessarily crack. Unwantedly, we should not increase too much of cement. Yeah, unnecessarily we should not increase too much of cement also. That is the reason whenever we are adding microsilica, what happens is it's a very fine particle. Usage of microsilica also need to be done very carefully. Unless it is warranted, we should not use microsilica for concrete. Because it's a very, very fine product which reacts in the initial phase. But if microsilica, whatever we are adding, 100% is not reacting with the calcium hydroxide, what is available in later on ages, it may create some trouble. That is what paper says. If you browse the paper, they say excess microsilica, because of microsilica also some structures have underwent deterioration. Whatever the case is there, you have to, depending upon the case, you have to select and use. It is not, there is no hard and fast rule in concrete. This is how the concrete need to be made, depending upon the situation, depending upon the local material availability, and what type of concrete you want, what type of structure. The mix need to be designed.
Like say, for example, when we are giving cement for precast work, rapid hardening Portland cement, which is having a fineness of 325 meters square per kg, that should not be used for concreting. It has to be used only for precast work, ideally. I mean, the cement versus application. That is very important, as you rightly said.
It's not only not only that. Suppose if you're going with the precast application cement, not only your fineness you are going to increase, your C3S you are going to adjust, your tricalcium aluminate you are going to adjust. All these things will create trouble in concrete because we should understand that.
So that cement should only be used for precast works. That is
yes.
That application specific cement.
Application specific.
After pouring, up to what time concrete can be considered as green is another question that has come up. Because you were talking about initial setting time of concrete, which is a very interesting topic. Nobody measures the setting time of concrete nowadays. Everybody, as you rightly said, goes by the initial setting time of cement.
Yeah. No, green means if you talk about concrete green, even if 24 hours also concrete will be green. Concrete is not going to get hardened faster. Okay. There is a difference between workable concrete and a hardened concrete. See, workable concrete may be workable up to 3.5 hours or 4 hours for which it can be designed. After that also the concrete, if you talk about concrete will be green, but it will not be workable. See, there is a difference between green and workable concrete. Because concrete, that doesn't mean in 28 days also concrete is 100% it is getting dry. Because if you refer to the papers, what they say is 12 millimeters. Suppose if I'm doing 120 thick slab, the entire slab is getting dried only in 10 years because 12 thick, 11 to 12 thickness of the slab only, the concrete is losing water per year. So it takes the entire slabs to get dried 10 to 11 years. That means still that time the concrete will be green.
True. Yeah. So, another question is that it is related to the weather. When we do the concreting, one is you have already talked about plastic shrinkage cracks, settlement cracks and all that, but there is another question which has come about. He says, what about concreting during heavy rain? Most of the slurry has gone, so what can be done in that case?
No, mind the thing is, suppose we are doing a concrete, you know very well that I'm going to work on monsoon season. Be prepared to cover the concrete. That doesn't mean you have to cover the entire surface and do. I'm not asking you to put a shed, which is highly impractical. Make your tarpaulin, everything ready. Okay. Suppose if rain starts, don't worry about the already consolidated concrete. The concrete which is loose need to be covered immediately because loose concrete will lose cement. The cement will get washed away. Whereas in the top surface, wherever you are compacted, only the slurry only on the top will go. Water will not percolate inside. That doesn't mean I'm not telling you not to close that. Give attention to the fresh concrete what is laid so that you are avoiding, as you said, slurry washed out. You are avoiding it. Then you cover that. But concrete need to be covered. If it is slight drizzling, nothing happens to the concrete, you can continue concrete. If it is heavy rain, better to stop concrete and not to do, because knowingly we should not spoil the product.
When you were speaking about crack, one more question that came about from one of the participants is, how can we identify structural and non-structural crack, which is very common nowadays, which people ask about this. How do you identify?
No, structural crack generally it doesn't happen if every practices given by the drawing is followed, the structure is not going to crack. So whatever the stipulations given by the designer, including your reinforcement placement, cover, compaction of soil, especially the foundation, the founding level, everything, if you are taking care, the structure is not going to crack. That's what I said. It's unless it is a mistake happens, structural crack is not going to happen. We cannot justify it how it generally happens. But normally, what paper says is, in case when you browse it, structural cracks, in case if something is there, normally it will be diagonal cracks, what is visible on the corners of the building on the opposite faces. Suppose you have a beam, the beams will show mid-span cracking. That's what they say, but I have not seen anything so far in my life.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what is it, and I don't want to see also.
So, yeah, another question is, what is your suggestion to increase the batching plant efficiency for production of temperature-controlled concrete?
No, temperature-controlled concrete, see, generally, all of you should understand, suppose if you are using a M1 plant of 56 cubic meter plant, it's like I'm purchasing a bike, 60 km/h. That is what is the speed they say. But bike will never go 60 km speed unless I don't have any obstacles. In a very ideal conditions, only it is possible, which is impossible. Like that, the plant rated capacity, if everything goes well, if you just see the cycle diagram, they say 300 kg cement, so much of kg of aggregate, so much of water, so much of admixtures and all. When it is mixed, I can produce 56 cubic meter. But in practicality, we are handling different concrete grades. Generally, 75 to 80% only the efficiency of the plant normally comes when you go for a normal concrete. Suppose if you are using a self-compacting concrete, your cementitious composite increases. Okay. Normally 450 kg should be your minimum cementitious to get the self-compacting behavior. 450, 500, 600, suppose if it goes, you have to give sufficient mixing time for the material to get mixed. So your mixing time, when it increases, automatically your production is going to drop. Suppose if I am making an M60 grade concrete with the same M1 plant, I can produce hardly, normally 42 cubic meter is possible if I am making M30 or M35 cubic meter concrete in a M1 plant, that is 56 cubic meter plant. If I am producing an M50 grade concrete, that drops almost to 30 to 36 cubic meter per hour, depending upon the mixed composition. If I am making an M60 grade concrete, further it will drop. If I am making an M80 grade concrete, even it may drop to 15 cubic meter per hour. That too, when I am going with the temperature control concrete, what happens is I am going to add ice instead of water. You have to give sufficient time for the ice to melt.
Okay.
Again, depends on what temperature you are going to make a concrete.
Yeah.
It's all, I cannot generalize it. This is what is the production you are going to get. What is the temperature with which you are going to produce concrete, and what is your environment conditions, and to what extent you have to reduce your temperature. See, there are two things. Temperature control concrete is one. What is needed, the temperature needed for placement, that is what is specified. Suppose if you want to place the concrete at 23 degrees, let me assume that. 23 degrees, I cannot produce concrete in the plant. Says the transit time is 1 hour, let me assume that. Concrete will gain temperature of 1 degree to 1.5 degrees every 15 minutes. That means there will be an increase of 6 degrees temperature, right? That means if I have to place it at 23, I have to produce a concrete at 15 or 14 degrees at plant. Then only when it reaches place after 1 hour, I can deliver at 23 degrees. So considering all these phenomena, the calculations need to be taken. So when you are adding more of ice, because producing concrete at 15 degrees, 16 degrees and all not at all possible, only with chilled water. So here in India, we don't have an option of adding liquid nitrogen. Okay. And generally it is not preferred. Even though trials have been done, even globally, people are using very less amount of liquid nitrogen. Its call happens only in the laboratory state, not in the regular field operations. So depending upon the considerations, the production level varies. It again depends on the condition of your batching plant again.
So the last question, sir. The last question is that, you were talking about compaction, lot of precautions to be taken while compacting. One question that came with reference to that is that why can't we go for a free flow concrete? Even one of the speaker earlier was also telling in the webinar that I always go for free flow concrete because I do not want to use vibrator. That is the claim that was being made. So what is your reaction to that?
Sir, you can go for if you have cost provision. Because if you're going with the free flow concrete, naturally, either you can only by changing admixture you cannot achieve. Naturally, you have to change your mix design. It may not be 100% self-compacting concrete, but to help the flow, probably your cementitious composite you may have to increase. When you start increasing your cementitious composite with respect to the strength, normally the cement content also will increase, so which is going to add on cost plus the admixture cost, what is going to add value. Minimal, even if I say for an M20 or M25 grade concrete, the minimum grade, normal approximation cost I'm telling you, maybe 400 to 500 rupees per cubic meter will be an increase. If I'm going for a self-compacting concrete, it may be around 600 to 700 rupees will be an increase. So if the project is having a provision of cost, considering the durability and fastness of construction, it is not that when you are going for a free flow, it is not only compaction you can avoid. You can minimize your labor. You can have a defect-free structure. Those things all need to be worked out and you have to make it. But if you are making a free flow concrete, it is not possible to make it with the site mixer. You have to have a batching plant. Unless you have a batching plant, free flow concrete cannot be made. All these special concretes cannot be produced. I think
Thank you so much, sir. I think the concrete, it will go on and on.
Yeah.
I think it will be a 1 day or 2 day session. Yeah, a 2-day workshop.
It's a never-ending session.
But we are very happy and privileged to have you. And many of our customers have also joined, that is engineer customers, and there I think a lot of good reviews have come about the presentation that was given. It was very useful for them. So we are very thankful because we want all our engineers, especially those who are from different parts of the country, to learn, to understand the significance of good concreting practices, which you have already covered from a practical perspective. So we thank you for having spared your time and having spoken very passionately about the subject that you love the most. Thank you so much, sir. So
thank you for the opportunity given here. At least I can throw some light. It's not that I am a master in this,
but still,
whatever I am practicing it, just I have shared.
True, sir.
Okay. So
Thank
many
you,
things
sir.
are there in concrete to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all the attendees. Thanks for sparing your time.